Hi, in this work example, I'm going to illustrate how we can perform power pivot using data models. And the problem that I'll be working on is problem number 15 of chapter 4. It's on page 161. Before I proceed, this problem actually has some issues on the instruction side. So I will remind you of that when I go along. Okay, so the spreadsheet that you see is the PO4 underscore 14.xlsx file. And this file is actually the same example file that's being used in the textbook, except that there's really no manipulations in there. So once you open up this file, then you see that this file has nothing. Okay, so there are data in there, but the data are stored in the data table. So in order to see the data, you have to go into Power Pivot because otherwise you won't see anything. Okay, go into Power Pivot, and then you want to do the first part A, to create a calculated column in the store data table. So you're going to go to Manage under Power Pivot, and then you're going to find the store table, so which is the first one, which is the last one, but that's shown up. Okay, so you scroll all the way to the right, and you select the Add column, and then now it's time to put in the calculated column. So you are supposed to put in large store, create a new column named the large store, and two different values. Value can be 1 if the store is large, which means that the selling area size is more than 800 square feet. But if smaller than 800 square feet, it's going to be a 0. So it's a 1 or 0 field. So if you recall from the example in the textbook, there are two ways to do that. One is that you just do the calculation, you just enter the expression here, and then you can change the name. But the more general way in DAX is always to create a name and then assign the expression. So this is how I'm going to do that. So I'm just going to type in the name is large store, okay, and then assign is always colon equal sign, okay, and then this is an expression. You want to create the expression will give you the calculated number, calculated value. So value is 1 if a store is larger than 800 square feet, and 0 otherwise. So DAX uses most of the Excel expressions. So here you just use an if function, and then you're going to select the selling area size. So this is the size of the store. So if it's, you want to test whether this is greater than 800 or not. If it's greater than 800, then the value is 1. If it's not, then the value is 0. Okay, so if you press enter, then you see that the column is all calculated for the based on the value. So you can see that for instance, row 10 will have a value 1 because the square feet is the size is more than 800 square feet, and so on and so forth. You can see all of the other values. Okay, so in B, it asks us to hide all the columns. I'm going to skip this one just for illustration purposes. Hiding and non-hiding is pretty easy, so I'm going to skip this one. C actually has a problem. So it says that in store table, if you read the instruction, it says in store table create a hierarchy called store location using those few names. What you should do is to go to the geography table, because all of those fields are actually in the geography table, and then you see how everything works. So if you want to create a hierarchy, then you have to use the diagram view. So you go to the diagram view by going to the bottom right of this icon, and you click on that, and you go to the diagram view, and it looks like this. Okay, so to create a hierarchy, Of course, if you want to see things more clear, then you can always maximize it, but that's not necessary. So all you have to do is just to make it a little bigger. That's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to make it a little bigger, and I'm going to add a hierarchy here. I'm going to add a hierarchy. It's called store location. Okay. And then now I have to create a hierarchy based on the instruction. So the first level is continent name. So they want us to show the different hierarchy, the hierarchy of different store location. You got to be very precise. Got to drop it in. I always have problem making the dropping of the name exactly the place. So you want to start with the continent, and then you go to region, country name. So you drag this right under the continent name. So if you move to here, then it's out. So you have to move to like right under the continent name. Okay, let me make this a little bigger. Okay, and then it's a state province name. So that's this one, and then drop right under it. Again, you just drop right under it. Now this I always have some problem. And then city name. So you click on this, and then you drop right under it. Okay, so now you've created the calculated column in the store on the store table, and then you created a hierarchy on the geography table, and then the last one they ask you to do is to create another calculated column and measure. So that's going to be on the sales table. So let's go to the sales table right here. And then I'm going to add a column. Click on this one. Click on add column. And then I'm going to go to add column and then put that in. So the name of the column is called return. And I'm going to do a sign. And again, I'm going to use the return amount, right? So it's basically this whole this column is 1. The value is 1 if there's a return. If the value is 0 if there's no return. So the way to find out whether there's a return or not, then you just have to test the return amount column whether it's greater than 0 or not. So I'm going to use the return amount column and to test whether it's greater than 0. If it's greater than 0, then I'm going to assign 1. If it's not greater than 0, then I'm going to assign 0. Okay, you press enter, then you see that they're all 0 because the first page will show everything that's with return amount 0. And then if you move down, you see you'll find. Let's see if there's any return amount. That's interesting. Okay, so if you keep scrolling down, okay, so if you move all the way down, then you see a bunch of sales that are actually returns. So apparently, what the store did was to actually record the sales earlier, and then record the return using a different sales key. So unfortunately, they all look like that. But you can actually sort things differently. So you can sort it based on this small to medium, and then you can see that some of them actually some of the returns are actually coded earlier. So it's probably all based on dates. Okay, so sorry about the rambling, but let's move on. So the next one is to create a measure. So remember, to create a measure, you just have to select. So in this part of the pivot, the power pivot screen is where you can create all the measures. So you just have to select the cell right under the list, and then you go up here, and then you write up a measure there. So the measure is total return. I'm going to type that. It's total return. Okay. And assign. And then I'm going to use, assign is this. I'm going to use sum as the function. And then once I start to sum, then it actually it gives me a list of the possible columns that I can use. And this is where the DAX actually helps out the programming a lot, because you don't have to, first of all, you don't have to memorize all of the names of the tables and their columns. And also, if you have to spell everything out, then it's going to be very difficult. The other one is the other thing is that the only it lists all the tables, all the columns that you can use, because when there's actually a relationship going from one table to another, sometimes it's if it's a many to one relationship, then you can't really use the table on the other side. So that gets a little more complicated beyond the scope of this class. But the thing you just have to remember is that when you type in a function like this sum, then the DAX will only give you the columns that you can use for this particular function. So this total return is the total number return that's calculated based on the return column that we just created on this table, on the sales table. So I'm just going to scroll down to the sales table, and then I'm going to find the return column that I just created. Double click, and I close it, and that was quick. So you can see that there's total of 4,660 returns. Okay, so now let's do the very last step. So I can close this one, so I don't have to worry about it, and then I can just go to actually I can just start the pivot table from there. We can start the pivot table from here too. So I'm going to go to Insert a Pivot Table, and then I'm going to use the workbook's data model. Okay, so the pivot table that I'm asked to create is a pivot table that shows the how many returns are in the large stores and in small stores in different locations. So that's what the table is going to show. So in order to show the location, I'm going to drag the store location hierarchy into the column area. So that's going to be under the geography table, and then the store location, that's the hierarchy that we just created. So I'm going to drag it to rows, and then I'm going to take the let's see, the large store in the store table that we just created. So let me scroll down. Let me find the large store. Where is it? It should be the last one, because that's that's the last one. I'm going to put it in the columns. So before I put anything, then you see that. So I have the row label, column label, and let me change that. That actually bothers me a little bit. I changed the report layout, showing outline view. Okay, so that's actually better. So large store, it tells me 0, then it's not. It's a small store, and 1 means it's a large store. And then the rows are Asia, Europe, and North America. Remember, that's the first level of hierarchy. That's a continent, and then you'll see that you can actually drill it down. That's very convenient. So what is the value? So there's nothing displayed here. So the value is the total return. So we just need to figure out the total return in terms of geography and the store size. So I'm going to go to sales. The return is that measure that we created is under sales. So I'm going to scroll all the way down under sales, and then you see that this f of x, there's a f of x sign. That tells you that this is a measure that we created. So I'm going to drag this measure to the values. Remember, the reason that we create measures is because there are only so many things that we can do in the value field settings. So we can do sum, we can do count, we can do min, max, and the standard deviation. That's about it. But if we want to do any type of calculation other than those, then we have to create our own measure. So the total return is the measure that we created, and I'm going to put it right here. And then you see immediately that, remember, the total return for everything is for this whole database is 4660, right? And then now it's broken down into different continents. So like in Asia, there are 473 returns. in small stores and 503 returns in large stores. Of course, if you want to know more, let's say that I want to know the return, the number of returns, large stores and small stores in Florida. So how would I know that? Well, I just have to expand North America, and then I have to expand the next layer down, the United States, and then I can see Florida, and I can actually expand Florida into the different cities. So isn't that convenient? So now I can see that, so in Miami there are 21 returns in small stores, because that's the label 0 and 1 of. Uh, I would think that when we created a label, maybe we shouldn't say zeros and one. Maybe we should just large store. We say small and large. That will be easier. But that wasn't what the textbook questions asked. So I'm just going to follow that. So 0 and 1. So when you read that, basically, if you want to find out, again, here you can just see, okay, so in Key West, I don't know how many small stores we have, but there are 5 returns in a small store. There are no returns in a large store. Of course, there are different statistics. If I go to, say, Washington, the state of Washington, then in Fall City, there's probably only a large store, because there's 13 returns in large stores and there are no returns in small stores. Okay, so this example shows how you can shows pretty much everything about the Power Pivot that we covered in the textbook. So it shows you how to create a calculated column, how do you create a hierarchy, how you will be able to create a measure to be used in the value fields, and also how you actually can create a pivot table using all that to illustrate the breakdown that you want to see, and you can take advantage of the hierarchy, and you can drill down to much deeper, much lower level to see the breakdown in much more detail. And for those of you who have used some kind of dashboard at work, then basically this is how dashboard is built behind the scene. Of course, some of the dashboards are much more complicated, but essentially the behavior or the basic idea is very similar.